Hello Saber Junkies. So look what we have here. A Starfall Sabers. This one was sent to me by Michael. He wanted a new install, some modifications done. So we're going to go over those. First thing is I added an OLED screen right here. Well, actually let's open this up because it's going to be so much easier to open it and go over everything that way. Let's do the chassis first. So the chassis originally was very small, very tight build, and he wanted a OLED screen on this chassis, so he presented me with quite the challenge. So the first thing I had to do, because this was on here, so that was the first step that I had to take, was to cut this piece off and then design a chassis for that length here. He wanted a kill switch on it as well, and so I was able to get the OLED screen in. Actually took 2 prints on this, which is rare. Usually I design it, I get it in from Craft Cloud, and then that's it. You know, I install it, paint it and everything. But this time the OLED screen was quite the challenge for me, because you have to get all the wires from here underneath here, and so I've had to come up with a solution to do that, since everything is just very tight here. So yeah, what I wound up doing was creating this insert here, which I didn't want to just create the insert, I also wanted to add something to it, and so I added this vortex on here. So the insert is held in by a couple of M3 set screws on each side here, so that if it ever needs to be worked on, this will actually come out and it could be worked on for whatever reason may happen. You know, sometimes boards go out, so you have to change the board out. Well, there you go, you get to all the wires right there. So the second print that I made, I actually went ahead and added the brass for it, because originally there was no brass on this, which is why the covers here are printed multi-jet fusion nylon, as well as the chassis. And this battery cover here is the same, but because I had to, I made him wait so long, I went ahead and added that and this cover here, because he wanted it to have a shine through for the OLED screen, so you could see it from the outside. That was a challenge that we'll get to here in a second. He wanted this cover, and because Nick makes these covers, I reached out to Nick to make sure it was okay if I made a cover. And so this is made out of steel that I copper plated. And Michael's idea was to put the batteries underneath these strips that he had put in here. I really didn't think it would hold, but once I got them drilled, I put the strips in and glued everything in. I was amazed how well it actually holds through the copper strips there. So that's actually really neat. I would not have actually thought to do that, so you know, it's a really good idea from Michael. This is a good example of listen to your customers. Sometimes they have good ideas. Yeah, my customers, a lot of good ideas. So we have this cover here. Let's set this off to the side for right now. And also, he wanted to shine through right here, which the PCB holder was right about here. So there was no way to do a shine through with the way that it was set up. Just was not going to happen. So what I had to do is take the crystal chamber out, and I had to cut this thing down by about 3/4 of an inch. But I didn't change the way that it looks here. So I was able to trim off the bottom a bit, trim off the top, push it down just a little, and now we have this, which this is glued in. We have this shine through here. The PCB actually sets right on top of this chamber. I mean, I made it just as thin as possible, so it sets right there, and I wound up actually attaching it to the top of the crystal chamber so that it would fit in there and we get this shine through. That was a challenge. This hilt just was a challenge from start to finish, but it sure was an interesting challenge to do. So yes, we have a battery cover here. Now these batteries, because we have the LED strips, you know, sometimes I have cutouts for that. But so the battery fits in there. You can use your wrench, or you know, your fingernail if it's long like mine, or you know, there you go. And it just pops back on there with magnets, so that's really good. Now it does fit one way, just FYI. It won't, you can't turn it the other way and it work, because the magnets are lined up a certain way, and I did that for a certain reason, just because of where the gap is. You have a gap here and not as much of a gap here. This part here is more for stability than anything, so it fits down in there really nice. The turbine was an addition that wasn't even asked for. I just wanted to put something on this removable part, and I thought it would be really cool to do, which wound up actually becoming, even adding a little bit more to it. The board cover, this is multi-jet fusion nylon, so even as strong as that is, this is a very thin board cover. So definitely be very careful with this. It looks great, but you could break it fairly easily. We got some magnets right here, and then we have magnets right here that hold this on. We have a Profi V3.9 in there, and so on the programming, we have all of the Starfall sound fonts, which were originally on the V2 board, which I swapped this out for a V3, so we have that update there. And so all the sound fonts from Nick are all on this one. And then all the sound fonts from Wade Saber's package is also on this. This thing has a boatload of sound fonts on it now. And for each one, I got lucky enough to have to go through and do all these different LEDs. So even though I altered the crystal chamber, this is Nick's design, and he put some, I don't know who installed this originally, so I can't take credit for this, but there was a LED strip behind this crystal chamber, and then a single LED lighting the crystal. And so those two things there had to be wired up in subblades. They were wired together, and then we have the main blade, the turbine here is wired individually, as well as the two strips. As you can see, they are different colors. And then of course the OLED has many different bitmaps in it, for mostly this one here from the CFX board, credited to Plector Labs, and then the spinning crystal right there. So, one of the main problems with this was to line up. First of all, I need to show this, don't I? So for this, I made some changes to this. This was the original pommel on here, and he wanted more of the Luke pommel. And so I took this one off, which was really on there good, and I put this one on, which is one that I got from Ryan at Scavenger's Foundry. He got this from maybe the Custom Saber shop. I'm not 100% positive. And so I didn't have an insert for it, so I made this insert from the Master Sentinel. It was a pommel. It was one of the original pommels that was actually too small for the original Master Sentinel. And so that misprint I cut down and made it into this insert here and put that inside there. So that's a pretty cool little tidbit. Now, getting the shine through here with the OLED screen, that was something, you know, machining it, you know, by hand is such a task to get this perfectly lined up. And I am just stoked, really, how it wound up turning out. Let me go here. Also, this shine through here, I'm going to push on this here. Just give me a second. So I'm going to line this up here with the turbine. Tighten that down. I had to move that tension screw from right here, which when it was down here like this, that's when it was here. You see the screws there. So I locked this one down with Loctite so that it doesn't move, and I moved it over here because, well, out of all the places that I thought it would look the best, there was the best place. I didn't want to move it here and have these strange 3 screws. I thought right there would be a good place for it. So as it turns out, I think it actually is turned out nice there. So after I lined up the OLED screen, which, like I said, you have 3 layers here of tubing. This layer, and 1 layer underneath, which is this layer. So I had to go through 3 different layers of tubing to get through to the OLED screen. And what I wound up doing was, I know that it has depth to it, and a lot of OLED screens that you see are not part of the handle. They're more like up here, and they set up really far up, and it looks really good that way. But I still want it to look good, but have to be that depth. And so that's why I wound up using this from Craft Cloud that I designed, this OLED cover, and which I believe it may be on Etsy with my OLED package. I know that the other cover is. So this one, I just wanted it to be thin enough to where it would be flush with this, so I set up the rotary on the mill, and I milled this out so that would set down in there flush, and that's what wound up happening. Now, once I added this to it, and I asked Michael if he wanted that to shine through as well, he did. And so then I had to go through and line that up as well to make sure that it lined up just as well as this did. And yeah, I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. I started out with just an 1/8 inch drill bit, drawing this up on here with measurements with calipers and trying to get the dead center, and it was just off just a hair. And then I went up to a 3/16 and drilled that in an end mill, and each step that I took to make this larger hole, I had to move it just a hair to get it to center just right. And I wound up going all the way up to 9/16, and then I stepped this down with a 1/2 inch and 7/16, and I may be backwards on those. But either way, I wanted this to step down, give it some layered look instead of just being a hole. And I countersunk this one in the bottom just a bit to give it a bit of a taper. So I think that wound up looking really good. And yeah, I believe that's pretty much it on everything that I did to this. The sound is amazing. I did wind up putting a shim down here to compress the chassis just a little bit, which is why I pushed down on it to lock that down. And that's something you can do, is just to put pressure on that speaker to give you really good sound. Just hold it down and then tighten it, and you'll get that good sound out of it. And I've got the volume turned down really low on this right now.
Reconcile.
Some of these I do have set up differently, but one of the best things about the OLED is all you have to do is pull out the SD card, and you can put anything on there that you want with the bitmaps. So if you want it to show, well, it's unlimited, really.
Legacy.
That sounds really good. Let's go ahead and put in a blade real quick here. This does require 2 different size wrenches, which is something I normally try to stay away from. But if you'll notice, the amount of room that I had from here to the very edge of that is just really small. And I did not want to put a 1032 set screw in there, and I wound up putting an 832, and this one has a 1032 or a 1024 maybe. Oh, there we go.
Lights. Ancient integration.
And now we are to the Wade Sabers sound font package from Syndicate Custom Relics. So yeah, for the shelf, cover goes right on there. I don't have a blade plug. I don't know if Michael has a blade plug or not. I need to ask. So I didn't put one with this. So yeah, that is pretty much it. That was the experience that I got to go through. I hope that you guys enjoyed that explanation of the fun that I got to have. This one was, yes, it's very memorable. I won't forget this one anytime soon. If I ever have to put an OLED screen in like this again, I want at least another inch on the end, you know? At least a little bit more room. That's definitely a tight build. So you guys have a great one, and I will see you on the next one.